Join me as I rank all 10 roller coasters at Blackpool Pleasure Beach from worst to best, so that you know where to prioritise your time when visiting the park. From the tiny dips of the Blue Flyer to the Big One, formerly the UK's tallest roller coaster, this park really does offer something for anyone, and that is a huge reason of why I believe Pleasure Beach is the best park here in the UK. Nevertheless, some of the coasters in the lineup are definitely better than others and therefore are worth prioritising when you visit. Therefore, I thought why not make this little video to give you a bit of a helping hand. Quick disclaimer before we begin, this is obviously my opinion and other enthusiasts will probably disagree with some of my takes I'm going to express in this video, especially because a lot of people can't handle a small rattle and claim all of the park's wooden coasters to be back-breakingly rough. Trust me, I'm a Pleasure Beach local, I visit literally every week, that isn't true. Starting off with the worst coaster on park in my opinion, at number 10 we have Blue Flyer, a PTC, Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters, wooden coaster located in the Nickelodeon Land children's area of the park. This ride was formerly known as Zipper Dipper until 2010 when the ride closed to be rethemed to fit in with Nickelodeon Land, which opened at the park in 2011, and that is where the blue colour scheme and the name Blue Flyer comes from. While this coaster isn't bad, so to speak, it is just a little kids coaster with a few small drops and a tunnel that goes through the Space Invader building, so it's really nothing special. But if you have small kids, they'll certainly enjoy it. If you're a roller coaster wimp, you'll be absolutely fine. And if you want the credit when you visit the park, then sure, go for it. Coming in at number 9, as no surprise to probably a lot of people, we have Infusion, a Vekoma suspended looping coaster, or SLC, that originally opened at Southport Pleasureland, now known as Adventure Coast Southport, in 1999. Back then, it was known as Traumatizer. Sadly, Southport Pleasureland, which was owned by the Thompson family at the time, closed down in 2006. And as a result of that, in the close season, Traumatizer was transported over to Pleasure Beach and rebuilt and received a blue paint job and opened in 2007 as Infusion, with Southport Pleasureland then reopening under a different company, and that park obviously still operates today. And as I said, it's known as Adventure Coast Southport, with a very much reduced lineup from when the Thompsons owned it. Now, from the off-ride shots I've just been showing you on screen of the ride, you may be wondering, how does this ride rank so low? It looks really good. Well, SLCs are universally hated by enthusiasts because they offer notoriously rough and uncomfortable ride experience, whereby your head is just whacked against the restraints throughout. When I first rode Infusion back in 2016, I absolutely despised it, that much so that I refused to ride it again for another 5 years. However, over the past few years, my opinion of it has changed a little bit. While I still find it very uncomfortable, I don't find it as bad as a lot of people say. It can be enjoyed somewhat if you keep your head against the right hand side of the over the shoulder restraint. That way it isn't being whacked between the left and the right of the restraint like a pinball. Nevertheless, it's still been saved from the bottom of the list though. If it was smoother, then it'd easily make the top 3, as it's actually a really intense ride with a solid layout. It's just a shame it rides so poorly. Coming in at number 8, we have Steeplechase, an aerodynamic steeplechase coaster that opened at the Pleasure Beach in 1977. Now, essentially, on this coaster, you ride on these horse gondolas, so you sat straddled on a horse and you race in groups of 3. So this coaster has 3 individual tracks. Some people count them as 3 separate credits. I don't personally, officially, on my coaster count, but it is something I'm still on the fence about. Another notable factor of this ride is its unbanked turns. Now, these can be a little bit painful because when you sat on the horse, you have these bars either side of your hips, and you can quite easily whack your hips on these bars as you're going around the corners. While the coaster isn't the most thrilling thing in the world, like it's got no massive drops or anything like that really, because of the way you sat on these horses, you really are quite exposed to the forces, so you do get a more exhilarating ride experience than you would otherwise if you were just sat in a normal car, so to speak. And I actually really enjoy this coaster more than a lot of other people, I feel. I actually think it's very underrated. I've grown a new appreciation of it this season because due to cost cutting, the park have started opening it at 12 as opposed to 10 or 10:30, meaning you can easily wait around for when it opens. It's not a case of it opens when you get into the park and you're having to run to the back of the park for it, and then by the time you get there it's got a massive queue because it has awful throughput. With them doing these 12 PM openings now, you don't have to worry about that so much, so I've been riding the coaster a lot more this year. One other thing to be wary of is the very sharp brakes at the end of the ride. If you're sat behind someone on the ride because you're sat single file, you can get 2 people on per horse, then you may slam into the person in front of you. That always happens with me and Danielle. I always ride this ride with Danielle and I go at the front and she goes behind, and she always complains that she slams into my bag on the brake run, but she loves the ride really, I'm sure. At number 7 we have Avalanche, which is a Mack bobsleigh coaster that opened at Pleasure Beach in 1988. What's unique about this type of ride is that you start off on a normal track on the lift hill, but when you're released from that, the rest of the ride up until the brake run takes place in this semicircular style trough that you slide down, similar to a track on a mountain that you'd slide down in a bobsleigh. Another one of the most interesting features of this coaster is the seating arrangements. Now, the ride features individual cars, but these cars can house up to 2 people. Now, if you're going to Pleasure Beach on a first date, I definitely recommend riding Avalanche with your date, because the seating position is certainly interesting and would be a very good bonding experience for you, because if you're sitting in a 2, you essentially have to straddle the other person. So you've got one person in front and the person behind has to straddle them with the legs essentially. So yeah, it's very interesting to say the least. As someone who has had the pleasure of riding Avalanche with someone else, I have to say that unfortunately, if you sat at the front, it's very, very uncomfortable. The lap bar can really dig into you and it can kind of spoil the ride. So I personally prefer riding solo, but do you prefer riding with someone else or riding solo? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Moving swiftly on, in terms of the ride experience itself, it's pretty enjoyable. The corners on the ride provide some great laterals and also some great positives, and the transitions as you're moving down the trough, especially when you get towards the bottom, are violent enough that they can actually provide some decent pops of airtime. Overall, Avalanche is a great coaster, but unfortunately widely speculated to be potentially on the chopping block, especially following the removal of the adjacent Grand Prix Cars ride for what the managing director Amanda Thompson claims to be for a new attraction. Many people speculate that Avalanche could also be removed in the future to free up that entire area of the park so that the park can utilise it all to build a brand new coaster on. I'm personally 50-50 on this because I've literally designed a coaster in Planet Coaster that utilises that Grand Prix space and doesn't require the need for Avalanche to be removed. Be sure to check out that video after watching this one, but a lot of people think otherwise. Coming in at number 6, we have Nickelodeon Streak, a Charles Page wooden coaster that opened in 1933 and, similar to Blue Flyer, is also located in the Nickelodeon Land Children's area. Now, this coaster was formerly known as Roller Coaster until 2010. Similar to Blue Flyer, it closed, ready for the Nickelodeon Land retheme, which reopened in 2011, and that's when the name was changed to Nickelodeon Streak, and it received the orange colour scheme that it currently has today. Now, I've got to be honest, I feel this coaster is a little obsolete in the park's lineup, as will make sense when I go into my number 5 entry, but nevertheless, it's a very good transitional coaster for kids wanting to try something a little bit larger than the likes of Blue Flyer, but not too large. It's a family roller coaster, so to speak, but with that being said, the back of the train can still feel pretty thrilling to the extent where you're getting quite a bit of ejector airtime on some of the ride's hills. Coming in at number 5, we have Big Dipper, a William H. Strickler wooden roller coaster that opened way back in 1923. That is right, this coaster is over 100 years old, and props to Pleasure Beach for keeping it going that long, because what an achievement that is. Now, the reason I stated that Nickelodeon Streak is a little bit obsolete in the park's lineup is because it offers a very similar ride experience to Big Dipper, which was obviously built beforehand. That's with the exception that Big Dipper's drops are a little bit steeper, offer a little bit more airtime, and the ride also pulls some more laterals as well. It has some very unbanked turns that it takes with quite a lot of pace. There's also a turn near the Big Blue that is banked but throws you from side to side, and these moments really do enhance how fun the overall ride experience is, and that is why I rate this ride above Nickelodeon Streak. Now, if you do ride Big Dipper, I definitely recommend sitting towards the front of the train, especially rows 4 and 5 in particular. On one of the airtime hills, you get some surprisingly strong ejector airtime going up into it, the strongest you can experience on the ride, and it really does catch you off guard and is a particular highlight of the experience. Coming in at number 4, we have Revolution, an aerodynamics shuttle loop roller coaster that opened at the park in 1979 and was actually the first 360-degree looping coaster in Europe. And once again, its removal is widely speculated to be on the horizon by enthusiasts, especially since it's faced quite a few mechanical issues in recent years, and it's had a lot of problems with valleying.
And I regret to inform you that Revolution has stalled for about the 3rd time today.
While this ride may literally consist of 2 raised platforms with 2 drops going off them into a loop in the middle, and you repeat that experience essentially just forwards and then backwards, this ride is ridiculously intense. The drops provide some incredible airtime, and the loop pulls some insane positive Gs, and going through it backwards especially is ridiculously intense. Like, I'm serious guys, this ride is capable of providing a ride experience that is more intense than the big one. Goodness me. Coming in at number 3, we have Grand National, a Charles Page Mobius looping wooden roller coaster that opened back in 1935. The Grand National isn't so heavily rumoured to be on the chopping block, and that is despite a recent video I made discussing an article claiming that the park could be applying for listed building consent to completely demolish Grand National. Obviously, Grand National is grade 2 listed, which essentially means that the park cannot modify it in any way or remove it. However, the park have since confirmed that Grand National will be reopening at the end of June, and it's currently testing following a major refurbishment to hopefully keep it going into the future. Therefore, my assumption is that the park have needed or could be needing to apply for listed building consent to make modifications to the ride to keep it going, and that is where this article is sparked from. Now, this ride consists of 2 tracks with trains racing each other side by side, similar to Steeplechase, except the track is actually configured in a Mobius loop, which is where the ride type name comes from. So there's not 2 individual tracks, so to speak, it's arranged in a single loop. And this is possible because the tracks separate out from each other at the start of the ride and switch sides, resulting in guests disembarking the ride on the opposite side of the station to which they boarded, having only traversed half the ride's total track length. Grand National is definitely the longest, most raucous and thrilling roller coaster on this list so far, and that is why it ranks so highly. The airtime you get over the hills is insane. The various unbanked turns throughout, which the ride takes at such high speed, provide some great lateral forces. A common complaint with this coaster is that it is just too rough. Like, literally, some people claim it's backbreakingly rough. Don't get me wrong, on wheel seats obviously being at the front and back of each carriage, some of the valleys can be a little brutal, but more often than not, this just adds to the ride's character. And in my opinion, for a ride that is 90 years old this year in 2025, it really doesn't ride too bad at all. Coming in at number 2, we have the famous Big One, an aerodynamics hypercoaster that opened at the Pleasure Beach in 1994. Upon opening, it was the world's tallest hypercoaster, the first hypercoaster to be built in the UK, and the world's first hypercoaster, so that being a coaster over 200 foot tall, to feature a drop greater than 200 foot. While its world record was broken a few years after opening, Big One remained the UK's tallest roller coaster for a whopping 30 years until Hyperia opened at Thorpe Park last year in 2024. While Big One may look and sound impressive, it's often criticised by enthusiasts for offering a boring monorail-like experience consisting of brutally banked turns and poorly profiled hills that offer little to no airtime, with its only redeeming quality being its first drop, which in the back half of the train offers some insane airtime and lateral g-forces that even some of the world's most highly regarded coasters struggle to contend with. I have to disagree though. While Big One can sometimes offer poor ride experiences, this usually only applies to the colder months and windier days. Needless to say, Big One is very weather dependent and suffers especially from high westerly winds, and it'll often close in such conditions to prevent potential valleying. But when it's at its best on a clear sunny day, Big One will absolutely haul its way around the circuit, providing crazy airtime on every single hill. Overall, Big One is an insane ride, and 9 times out of 10 when I hit the brake run, I will be left with a huge smile on my face. Another common complaint with the Big One is that it's too rough. And while it sometimes can be a bit brutal within certain sections of the ride when it's running really quickly, notably the worst is the transition out of the helix following the mid-course brake run, followed by the turnaround and some of the valleys on the return leg. Similar to Grand National, these imperfections just generally speaking give the ride more character, and 9 times out of 10 they're not problematic. If you want to be safe though, what I will say is avoid the back rows of each carriage. Not necessarily the wheel seats, just the back rows of the carriages on the train, as these are typically the roughest and can be a bit too much for me sometimes. And finally, at number 1, we have a truly iconic roller coaster, that being Icon, a Mack Rides multi-launch roller coaster that opened at the Pleasure Beach in 2018. Sure, this coaster has a lot of sentimental value to me because it was one of my first ever big thrill coasters, and it was the first coaster that I followed the construction of. And sure, it isn't the tallest, fastest, most thrilling roller coaster ever built, but it provides an all-around enjoyable experience. The top hat following the first launch, the junior Immelman, and various elements in the second half of the ride provide some incredible airtime. The inversion, that is right, I didn't use a plural because the junior Immelman is not classed as an inversion, but the zero G roll provides some incredible hang time. The trains on the ride feature lap bars, unlike the other inverting roller coasters at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, providing some great sense of freedom. You feel so exposed on this ride because also the seats are raised up as well. You're not enclosed in a car or anything, so that lap bar combo with the raised seats, you feel so free to the forces of this coaster. The helix in the second half of the ride provides some great positive forces, along with some of the turns as well. You get great laterals on a lot of the turns as well. It excels in all the areas I've touched on with all the other coasters we've discussed on this list, and that's why this coaster ranks in as number 1. And not forgetting Enzo as well, which is truly the best way to experience Icon. Enzo is a pair of spinning seats attached to the back of one of the trains of Icon, and don't get me wrong, it is pretty pricey. It's an upcharge and will set you back £15 to do, but if you've never done it before, it is well worth doing. It is ridiculously intense. But I hope for those of you planning a trip to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, or Pleasure Beach Resort as it's technically now known, this video has helped you establish what to prioritise during your visit, and to see my creation of a coaster that could potentially fit on the Grand Prix site that I think would be a great addition to the park, click the video on the right side of your screen. For more things theme park related in the UK and beyond, click the icon in the centre of your screen to subscribe. I'm Ben, you've been watching ThrillNet, and I'll catch you again soon.